Hello.
Hey!
Oh,
Hi! Oh my gosh, how are you? It's been a while.
good. Look at my dog.
Annie. Say hi,
Annie's
Annie.
asleep. He wanted to join. Um, he loves joining Zoom. So
Good to see you, Alexa. How are
good
you?
to see you. You look so great.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
You
I
do too.
see the soccer ball, the amazing soccer ball that
Yeah.
has been around so long.
For a decade now, I guess, yes.
Can you imagine it's been a decade?
I know.
I was thinking about that when I was looking at the question. I was like, when was my first camp? 2012? And then I was like, "Wait,"
2012, yeah.
I go, "It's 2023. How has it already been over a decade? This
Hey.
happened." So,
Thank you. Thank you, Alexa, for making time for me this morning.
always.
I appreciate it. Your lighting is so good. Do you have like ring lights on or something? Because like so bright where you are right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's good
Well,
though. It's good lighting.
it's the morning for me.
Right.
Oh,
And it's
but
midnight here.
that is the Texas weather for you.
Okay. All right, so let's jump in. Welcome to my humble pod. I appreciate you making the time to chat with me today. So the reason why I I really invited you, I know I keep inviting you for the last few months, but
Oh, yeah.
I just recently realized how you're the right person to ask about all these questions in my head about US soccer. Just because I had these thoughts because of the recent tryouts in California. So, as you know, for many years, we've relied heavily on heritage players like yourself, mostly based in the US. And now, uh, some structures are kind of in place with the recent appointments of Coach Taj and Coach Nas, and while the PFF has its faults, Mr. Cheng is doing the best he could to kind of sustain the program that they've started. So before we get into that discussion, again to those who don't know Alexa is a former defender for the national team. She last played for the country in 2018 Jordan
Oh,
Women's Asian Cup. And now she's currently the director of league development and player programs of Girls Academy League in the US. So let's just take a step back and talk about your playing years first. So, what got you interested in playing soccer, Alexa?
Um, to be honest, it was actually my childhood babysitter. She and her sister both played soccer. And they would introduce my older sister and I to soccer when they babysat. So they helped get me into soccer at the age of 3, just from playing with me and giving me a ball. So from there, I just fell in love with the game and watched them as they went on in their careers through college, and I wanted to be just like them. That's why my number was number 15 for my entire career, because my babysitter was number 15. So I will always wear 15 in honor of her and what she did for me and creating that pathway for me in soccer.
Interesting. Are you still in touch with the babysitter?
Yeah, yeah, actually, I ended up babysitting her kids
Oh,
when she kids. Yeah, and she helps from time to time watch my sister's kids. So it's
mm,
going pretty full circle, so far with her, and keep really good touch with her and her sisters, and her mom. So I just actually said happy birthday to her, last week.
ooh, nice. Happy birthday. If she ends up watching this. So could you talk about how you were scouted? I know you're one of Mark Manguni's discoveries. What made you
Yeah.
decide to play for the Philippines?
Well, That was a kind of a discussion that I had with Joanna Hooplin as well, because we were playing against each other in college, and she got a similar email that I did to our coach from Mark, scouting us and identifying us and inviting us to the camp. And it was a time in my life where I really wanted to continue my playing career beyond college. And I didn't know what that looked like at the time. I was a freshman in college. I really loved playing the game and I wanted to see it at another level. So from that email, just kind of like a sign that says, like, hey, this is an opportunity for you to continue playing at a high level and getting the exposure that you want and traveling and representing, the heritage that is so close to us. Being Filipino and having my family come over from the Philippines in the early 60s, like my own father. So it's, that kind of connection to being the first in my generation to have the opportunity to go back to the Philippines was a great like push for me. I was like, okay, let's try this. And then Joanna and I went to go try out in 2012.
You were you in the same club you said? Because you said work, right?
Well, we played against each other
Okay.
in uh, college. So we were rivals in college.
Ah,
But then we
right.
played summer club together. So,
I see.
that weird break, for college players to
Mm,
play in a summer league.
mhm,
Joanna and I were, teammates during the summer.
Shout out to Joe Hoop, if you're
So,
watching. It was just a short time, Alexa. But what was your most memorable experience playing for the country?
oof, there's so many. I think one of my most memorable ones was my first cap SEA Games 2013. Was it 2013, the SEA Games? And walking out into the stadium filled, I can't even remember how many people were there, in Myanmar. It felt like 30,000, I can't, or somewhere around those lines, but just hearing how loud it was and how many people were gathered at that stadium to watch a women's game was the most, like, amazing experience that I've had, as a player, and just feeling a sense of overwhelming feelings and emotions of how far the women's game was at that point, in 2013, and seeing it now is incredible. But at that time, I was like, what a huge accomplishment for women's, and especially in Asia. So that still gives me like chills of like feeling that standing there in the starting 11, just overwhelmed and great. And like I did it, but
That the one with the where you played in the new stadium?
yes,
Right.
yes.
Okay, I
Where
remember.
they built it just for the SEA Games.
Yes, yes, yeah. I remember because Monica was raving about it. Like,
Yeah,
is it?
we all were. It was incredible. I remember, like, all of us were like, we went in there before the game,
Right.
before the game to kind of, do our little walkthrough training on the
Mm.
grass, because we couldn't be there very long on the grass, but just seeing all of it, and it was incredible. I remember it was probably um, the banner on my Facebook for years because it was so pretty.
Nice, nice. So, um, you've been a part of like the vision to eventually qualify for the World Cup. When we did it last year, was a part of you like interested in somehow becoming involved, considering your connections and your credentials?
Um, Part of me was for like a hot moment of like, oh my gosh, this is what we were working for so long. But looking back on that, like after it kind of hit me for a little bit of like, this is where you're at in your age, this is, you know, a different part of your life. But I was just so overwhelmed with happiness of how far they've accomplished, and knowing that we were part of the pathway. I loved that part, and knowing that there's a huge future for the youth players. And so that was for me more of an opportunity for the young players to get that exposure, to get that experience, to start developing younger players to represent the country and the team longer. For some of us, we started at such a later age that the time that we could spend with the team and representing the team and leading the team wasn't very long. So having young players come through is, I think, more important than bringing back kind of older players, and it creates a longevity and a depth in the team for the future. So part of me for about 30 seconds, and then I was like, no, I'm okay. I want to be there as a fan or, someone on the sidelines to help coordinate, but I am more than happy to be one of the number one fans wearing an original, you know, Philippine jersey.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, I think some of your, let's say, batchmates were also like interested to play again for a hot moment. There were messages after the team qualified. All right, so tell us about your work in Girls Academy League and what's that really all about?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, the Girls Academy is a top platform for female only players in the US from the ages 13 to 19. So my role within the Girls Academy as the director of league development and player programs is I oversee talent identification and kind of scouting all of that for all the age groups, mainly the recruitable age groups for college. I also oversee partnerships, sponsorships, as well as player led programs. So we have a program within the league that's called the advisory panel, and that is a player led panel. They talk about certain initiatives and topics that are going on it, whether it's in the league or their club or their conference, things of those sort that they want to bring to the forefront of the league to help drive, to help change, to understand their voice as a female, as a soccer player, what they can achieve and grow and learn in these ages that can help them kind of in life going forward, whether it's in sport, out of sport, any career that they want. So just trying to help them learn all of these great life tools through the game and support one another. So that's kind of what I do with the Girls Academy. We have 92 clubs throughout the United States. We're in about, I want to say 35 states out of the 50 or 51, how you view that. So yeah, we're growing quite quickly. We are in our third season entirely. So we've grown and established ourselves pretty great within these last 2.5 years.
Wow, that's a lot. You sound like you're very busy.
Oh yes, I am. Uh, it's so much fun. Like, to have a platform like this in the women's game where we're at right now is something I wish I had
Mm.
growing up. I wish I had an opportunity to learn a lot of these tools and get to know some of the players within this league, that it's not, constantly a competition or a rival between these players, because you don't know who could be your teammate in college, who can be your teammate professionally, who can, some sort of connections and networks that you can build through this game. It's not always one person against another. And that's what we're trying to create at the Girls Academy, is a community of, girls and women supporting women, and, doesn't matter your gender, supporting one another, right? Of, lifting each other up, helping each other, and just being good people is what we are trying to achieve.
So it's mainly focused on player development. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's new to me because I feel like well, at least from what I've seen, like most of the youth leagues here, and also from what I see online, are like mainly focused on, competition. and stats. I believe that has something to do with like, getting a good scholarship for college. Is that right?
Yeah.
I see. Okay. So like I've mentioned earlier, most of our standouts are coming from the diaspora talent that we have, mainly in the US. So understandably, not a lot of Filipinos are familiar with the US youth soccer system. So for instance, Alexa, if my kid wants to eventually play or become pro or play for the national team in the future, what would that journey look like for her in the US?
So in the US, there's a lot of different pathways in the youth system starting from an early age. So in the US, they've done a really good job of focusing kind of on the what we call the grassroots level, which is the under sevens to kind of under 11s. That's that age group of introducing them to small sided games, helping them understand um, situations and solving them on their own before they get access to a kind of a bigger field, more players, things like that. So trying to understand this, just the bare basics of soccer. So starting them from kind of that age in developing into the young ages of 12 to 19. So, but that's a kind of a big gap as well, but it's kind of separated into 12s, 13s, 14s is, that development stage is one of the key development stages in learning the game and the tactical and technical focuses of the game. And then moving into the recruiting ages, which is 15s, 16s, 17s, and also 19s is kind of the 19s is in the time when they're prepared to go on to college or to go professionally, depending on their choice. Nowadays, there's some players that are going to pro from 19 right out of club, or some are going to college and then maybe leaving college early to go pro in the NWSL and the USA. So, that pathway is kind of long. Obviously, you have some players that are starting at that grassroots level, or, we have multi sport athletes that are doing multiple sports and may not be completely focused in soccer until maybe they're 12, 13, 14, somewhere in those ages, or they're continuing multi-sport until the end of high school. So there's a lot of there's no proper way to do it, but it's all about, what they're doing at a young age of their understanding of the game, of learning from coaches that are helping develop them into understanding their own way of playing. Because not every player is going to be the same, right?
Right.
So just investment that they make at those young ages
Mhm.
makes a huge difference along the way. Because when you're older, you shouldn't be teaching them the fundamentals of, how to be dribbling a ball, how to receive a ball, or, those are kind of refreshers when they're older. It's more of understanding, giving them situations of like how to solve the situation in a 2v1 scenario in this part of the pitch. So things start to become more specific. So it's starting with the basic idea of soccer and slowly evolving and adding different aspects to the game as they get older. So that's, what a good pathway is, and what I think US soccer has helped map out really well from the youth to like kind of 19s. And then it kind of goes off into kind of that professional college level. So it prepares them really well to being able to adapt to certain situations when they're older.
Nice. Good for you guys over there.
It's not perfect. It never is, because the game
Yeah.
is changing so much in the style of play of positional play. So, the game does evolve, and it's
Mhm.
more of, being able to evolve with the game and start continuing education and learning different things. There's things that coaches learned 20, 30 years ago that could apply still, but I think the game has started to change so much in those last 15 years that you might need to start learning different things. And so that's why, US soccer does a good job of continuing education. That though you have your certain licenses,
Mhm.
you can still take courses of specific things. I mean, other federations do that as well. Of just because you have your A license doesn't mean like you're done. You do refreshers and challenge yourself continually as a coach so that you're kind of in tune with what's going on in the game so that you can adapt as well and apply it to your players.
Right, right. So, Alexa, I see a lot of this like post with ECNL. Most of the tryout hopefuls recently, they would have like ECNL label in some of their posts. So I just recently learned actually that Girls Academy is a league. I thought it was like a big club, so I didn't know
No,
that it was a league. So apart from so um what sets Girls Academy apart from other leagues like ECNL? And are there other leagues, or it's just well, you're one of the two
yeah.
biggest leagues?
We're probably like the bigger of the leagues in the probably top competitive kind of bucket,
Oh,
so to say. There are a bunch of other different leagues that offer the ages that we offer as well,
mm,
um, competitive nature and things like that. But what kind of like sets the Girls Academy apart is that our main focus is on developing the player itself. We don't we want to help the players become better players and people. And that's like our strict focus. And that's why we have an advisory panel is to get the understanding of what the players actually want. Because when back when I was playing, or a bunch of other people before me, like years ago, we didn't have an opportunity to share what we wanted or see you know, what we could do for the women's game because it was already decided for us. So kind of our way of going about it is having them involved in the conversation, allowing them to have what we say, a seat at the table, right? But giving them an opportunity to voice kind of things that are happening because they outnumber us. They outnumber the people that are making these decisions, and we shouldn't be the ones constantly making them for them. So it's just, letting them say what's going on. Then we start having a conversation of what we can do to help them and support them best. So I think that's kind of what sets us apart from everywhere else is that our focus is, yeah, you want them to do well, to compete, to, um, continue loving the game and pushing their threshold of what kind of player they want to be and places they want to go. But at the same time, they're an individual and a person before they're a soccer player, right? So, and that's who they're going to remain being even if they stop playing soccer. So it's helping develop that part of their life.
thanks, Alexa. So, do you receive like a financial aid from US Soccer, like Girls Academy and ECNL, or is it like a privately run league?
Yeah, so we're nonprofit. So
Okay,
we don't get funding from kind of the federation or anything like that.
gotcha. Okay, so interesting. So, what does a season look like, and for how long is it, and does it culminate into like a national championship wherein you have like state champions from the 35 states that you've mentioned?
Yeah, so we separate ours based on conferences rather than states. So we have different conferences. We have 9 of them in our league now. So what we do, it's about 10 months for the entire year. Usually there's a break between July and August and then starting back up again. Also a break during the holiday season, but throughout the entire time, all the teams are required to play a certain amount of games against their conference. So each conference is kind of running their own little competitive league within the conference. And then we host national and regional events. So regional events focuses on 13s and 14s, so only the younger ones. And then we host a winter national event, a spring national event. We have another different kind of competition, what we call the Champions Cup. So those are based on results from the previous year of the top clubs play in a Champions Cup. So it's creating that competitive nature of those top performing clubs within those conferences to play against each other. So it's kind of like a super league, essentially, which is really cool, and a really cool atmosphere that they compete constantly against top tier clubs and try to win for something. So that's actually happening in March. And then we have our summer showcase and playoffs. So that is the time where they do their playoff run of, okay, based on your league standing, this is kind of where you sit, and then you play to move on. And we have national champions. So that's the whole process, is that, continuing to do well in league, you get points as well as in any of the showcases that you attend, but it's limited to a certain amount of games. Like if you go to 2 different national events, you can't just be racking up all these
Right.
points, right?
Right.
So you have a certain amount of games that it applies to,
Mm.
and then playing for a national championship, which is so cool and so fun for the players, because it's an elevated competition from just people in your state. Like you're playing against people that live across the country, sort of deal, that you may have never played in your life. Like, oh, we're playing a team from California and you're from New York. And, that cool aspect of being able to play against players from a completely different area.
Nice. And you mentioned earlier that you just started like a few years ago, right? Girls Academy.
Yeah.
And you were able to like organize all of that in like the last what, 3-4 years?
Actually, it will be 3 years in May. Yeah,
Okay.
but we had an incredible team of board members that volunteered and put in so much work to make this league happen. So, there's a group of about 10 of them that
Mm.
work day in, day out, Zoom calls to make this league happen, which we're so fortunate for, to provide this pathway for players, because it wasn't there. It was actually created because US Soccer had the development academy, and in April they just cut it off. So these players that were playing in the development academy had nowhere to go.
Okay. So just a follow-up question on the US Soccer's development academy. So is that kind of like an academy where you enroll to be trained by US Soccer, I don't know, accredited trainers? How is that like? How's that set up?
Yeah, so the Development Academy is was essentially a national league. So you would participate. So similar to what like the Girls Academy, ECNL are, is what the Development Academy was.
Okay.
So it's clubs that participate in the league
Hmm.
of the Development Academy. And what kind of set them apart is that players weren't allowed to play high school. So they were able to run, kind of fluidly throughout the year of like events and things like that, because they didn't have the conflict of high school.
Gotcha. Okay. So the reason why I asked that is because on the men's side here they had like an Ask Us Academy. So I'm just kind of trying to picture how that setup's going to be if applied here. So that's the only reason why I asked.
So what's similar to like a team academy
Right.
would essentially be like how the MLS have their academies. So they have
Hmm.
like a first team,
Yeah.
second team, and then they have their youth team. So that's essentially what an academy
Okay.
of is the age groups going down. So it's like 13s, 14s, 15s, 16s, 17s, 19s, second team, first team. So it's kind of a player pathway from youth to professional. So
Gotcha.
that's probably what the As Cows Academy is, correct?
Actually, I'm not sure to be honest.
Well, probably similar to that.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll say that.
Let, let's talk about showcases. You mentioned it earlier. Um could you tell me what that's all about? And is it organized by the league or the club?
Yeah, so the league organizes all of the showcase events. So the clubs and the teams register to be in our events. They have a requirement for being in the league. It's only for our league members to participate. So they have a minimum to attend one national league, whether it's the winter showcase or the spring showcase. So they decide on which one that they're going to, and then we host that. We, do the schedule, the venue, like kind of the setup. So all they have to do is come in and play. So we try and alleviate like that stress part of it. So it's coming in, playing. Normally it's 3 games in 4 days with one rest day. So it's could be game, rest day, game, game. So that's 3 games in 4 games or in 4 days, or it's game, game, rest day, game. So it's allowing them to play competitively 1 game a day. So we've gone away from playing multiple games in a day. Like if you remember, it's like 3 games in
Yeah.
1 day.
Yeah.
I don't know how we were able to do that back then, because my body hurts just thinking about it, but now it's trying to protect them from injuries because
Mm.
there's a lot of injuries that go into, playing so much. So having those rest days is super key to recovery and maintaining, good body strength and, maintaining what you normally would be doing as in college or a professional, playing a minimum amount of games and rest days in between before you go back to training. So that's how we structure it. And then we invite scouts, college coaches out to recruit and see the players play consistently. So for multiple days.
Right. Nice. Because here usually college coaches would just go to the provinces because there are football hotbeds outside Manila, and they would just conduct tryouts and watch football festivals, recruit players from there. And then there are academies as well, but there's very, very few of them. But I would say more recreational than competitive, although they do join some competitions here in or here and abroad. But really it's a very, very small community. So one more thing, Alexa, because I know a lot of people talk about like pay to play. And like here, if you want to learn how to play football, you're gonna have to enroll your kid to an academy.
Yeah.
So the standard argument is that like it's too expensive to play, and that how it should be widely available at the minimal or zero cost, like how they do it in South America or Europe. Um, and it's become more of a business than a grassroots sport. So in Girls Academy, are there like financial aids given to clubs, or like do you accept like let's say scholarships for players who cannot afford but are really good, and then you assign them to clubs? Do you have like a program like that?
So it's mostly done throughout each club. So each club has their own way of providing financial assistance to players within their area. We, like us as a league, we don't assign players to certain clubs. Those are done kind of in house within the club. We're usually just the outlet to play in a league. But we have started and are building right now our scholarship fund for the players. So having different sponsors and different initiatives where people can, purchase, for example, a bottle, and a percentage of that goes to the scholarship fund. So currently, right now, we're starting to try and build our scholarship fund to provide travel stipends for players that struggle with travel, because that's one of the biggest things about kind of the pay to play structure is it's not the registration fees, it's the travel fees of
Right, right.
traveling to games, traveling to showcases. That's where the problem is. And so helping us as a league want to help balance that out for those players so that, the club can help from a financial registration side, and then the league can try and assist from a travel side. So that's what we're trying to build right now. It's something that's in a work in progress because scholarship funds and things like that take a while to build because you want to maintain it. Because just because you got a little amount of money in there, you don't want to deplete it right away because then you don't have anything to build
Yeah.
again.
Yep.
So you have to
Mhm.
start from scratch. So we're trying to build that now and then hopefully, execute that soon and start having players apply for that scholarship fund each year. So that's the idea behind it. But I understand that the pay to play is not the ideal situation, but at the same time, you know, understanding that there are coaches that want to do this for a living. And so that's the way to pay them because I know, in other countries, coaches aren't paid very well. Coaches don't have this as a full-time job. But when you have somebody that can focus strictly on the development of players, that's going to come at a cost because they have a life that they need to live as well financially. So, I understand that there's pros and cons in that, but there's also, a lot of reward as well.
Gotcha. Perfectly understood. So you've mentioned, Alexa, how you're involved in talent identification. Could you share like how you actually do it? Do you like when you see like a very talented player, do you refer them to a scout? How's that process like?
So I work directly with the US scouts for the youth national teams here in the US. So I work directly with them of, making sure that I help build a structure for them to see players. So I help run talent identification events throughout each conference to try and bring together the top players from each of the conference to play against each other. Because one of the big things about being able to identify players is that you can identify a good player, but putting a player in an environment that is very competitive in itself, along with other high players, like high level players, can showcase so much more of what that player's potential is. So taking them out of like that team environment, putting them into a situation where they're playing against another high level players is probably the main thing of identifying players is by being able to, for example, let's match up a really good number 9 with one of the best 4s or 5s, because then you can see, well, how well does that 4 or 5 do against a top number 9? And the reverse, how well is this number 9 going to do against a top 4 or 5? Then you can start seeing, the actual potential growth of that player. So from there, being able to identify those players and, I bring in scouts with them, like to those events to help them and say, hey, this kid, this kid, this kid, how about let's take those top kids that are performing well in those conferences, and then I create like a national one. So then I create a national talent ID. So then it's the top players from the league nationally and putting them in a competitive environment. So it's just kind of moving kind of top kids from their team into a conference, what people would say regional, and then moving those top kids into a national. So keep pushing them to be into competitive environments. So that's what I do, is to help identify those players to move there to make it easier for those scouts to come in and be like, oh yeah, that kid, let's match up this kid with this kid because I want to see them. And then from there, they'll usually pull them into national um, camps and things like that.
Whew. Wow. I'm like just envious right now.
I mean, I don't know if I would say that.
Okay. So what do scouts or recruiters usually look for in terms of, I don't know, maybe in a quality player, or like in terms of character, like just based on your experience?
Yeah. So usually the kind of the structure is certain key qualities that they see. And it also it's kind of extensive, right? Like so if you think about it, you're like, oh, it's just this player, this player is really good at, X, Y, and Z. But in retrospect, you also need to look at, okay, what position are they playing? Here are certain qualities that we want to see because they have, US soccer has a philosophy. They have a great understanding of what the player profile should be by position, right? So um if you're looking at a number 8, right? And you say, "Oh, this player is really really good." Okay, well what are they really good at? In retrospect to the player profile for a number 8. Are they able, to receive the ball across their body? Like what kind of understanding do they have into spaces around them? How are they able to, break away from their mark in order to receive the ball to play out? So and then also understanding what phase they are in the game. Are they building out? Are they maintaining possession middle high up the field? Are they in an attacking phase? Or on the flip side, are they in a defensive phase? So it's like, it's not just identifying just like that kid's really good. There's so much more information that comes with that of where they are in a certain part of the game, where like what situation that they're in. So it's like it's really 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 hard to describe what they're looking at because it's so different by position and it's so different by age as well because for females in maturity levels a player that may be maturing earlier than another player in like the 14s and 15s so that those things change a lot. Maturity is a huge factor to the development process in both female and male, so that comes into play as well of like what is their potential to
Gotcha.
be. Have they matured yet
Right.
physically? Because that could change of what
Gotcha.
their potential could be, right? Growth spurts, all those things come into play of like, then you go into like, okay, let's see you with your parents. Okay, what kind of like are you gonna grow? Where are you at? Those there's so many things that come into it. So it just kind of depends on certain situations based on the age and position of what is specific. So I'm sorry that's so general, but it's like it's so specific that you can't identify exactly what's being looked for.
Yep, gotcha. I know you said a lot, but I mean, it totally makes sense. I understand.
Yeah, I know I'm trying to help you understand kind of the process
I
that
Yes,
it's
yes.
going through is it's so complex,
Right.
but it makes sense.
Yes.
But there's so much complexity into understanding a player. That's
Gotcha.
else.
Yes, because I had this like like small talks within like supporters about how they would rave about certain very young players, and I would always argue like how you also, okay, they may be really good, but you have to consider how how young they are they matured enough for playing for like at the national team level, because they may be good at like club level. The international tournaments are way different from what it is, or the environment that they're used to. So yeah, it makes sense. I
Yeah.
appreciate you explaining that very well. So
Yeah.
all right. So thank you, Alexa. So let's go to the questions that were sent in. So there's actually, I had a conversation with Mark Manguni about this, and this is his question. So what elements do you think can be applied in the Philippines?
I mean, to be honest, being able to create a pathway at a youth level, um, because that's where your depth starts is the youth level and being able to implement an actual pathway for the players to take. Because I think right now there is not one. There, it's being able to say, "Hey, you're really good at U9. Let's see you U10, U11." But also, if that pathway is in place, you could have a player that's really good at U10, but should be playing U11. So being able to understand that a player can be very good in that environment, but isn't challenged enough, right? Their maturity level and their understanding of the game is exceeding their age. So putting them in an environment where they are challenged, but that won't happen if there's not a pathway of age groups for them to see and for them to understand that they can move up in age groups if they need to be challenged a little bit more. And that the more that they see that, hey, this kid is going up because their understanding of the game is so much better. Their movements off the ball, with the ball are much better than their age. That's going to create, top level players, top environments for the players to be at and continuing wanting to excel. So pathway is, I think, the biggest thing that needs to happen, especially not going from the top down. I think that's where some countries do it wrong, is that they are building from the national team down, where in retrospect, they should be going from the bottom up, because if they constantly creating at the bottom, they're starting to move players through a system and creating a bigger player pool.
Gotcha. Yeah, because Coach Staj actually mentioned that the other day during the press con we're in, because there is none, almost, I don't want to say none, but maybe almost, we don't see it. But he was saying, like, he's come to the point wherein you'd have to do it from national team level down, because there isn't any, anything for the younger players. So, oh, perfect. Um all right. Next question, Alexa, is from Bolib. So, is Alexa interested to be a scout for Filipino heritage players for the national team if ever offered to her?
100%. And I think I kind of already do that already. Players within the girls' academy, I'll be talking to parents a bunch, and then they kind of know my background and they tell me, they're like, "Hey, I'm a Philippine heritage as well." It's like, great, okay. What club do you play with? What, position is your kid? Contact me for, those kind of things. So it's more like right now, I'm just trying to like send people to camps or something. That's why, I try and post as much as I can when I see things on social media about camps being in California. It's like, posting it on kind of my social to try and get, some players or parents saying like, "Hey, I'm of Philippine heritage as well. Can I try this out?" And I'm like, 100%, you know, that's where it starts. So if there's an actual scouting position that I can do along with my job, yes, I will do that.
Calling PFF, if you're watching. Okay. So, next question would be, what were your fond memories of the 2012 tryouts and the Asian Cup in 2018?
Oh man. I mean, I think just of the tryout, I think my fondest memory was just being able to see so many people that have long brown hair ponytails. And I think that was like the funniest thing, because I remember my mom, she was like, "I couldn't tell which one was you." And I was like, "I know, it's great, isn't it?" We all look so similar. Because when you think about it, like between me, Jesse, Maria, Monica, like all of us had like long brown hair. And I think that just like sticks with me, because honestly, like I felt so um included, right? I felt so at home with these girls that understood part of who I am, right? I didn't have to explain, what it's like to be Filipino or where is the Philippines? Like, "Oh, are you sure you're not Latino or Latina?" And I'm like, "I mean, yeah, we're in Asia." So, those are just things, and then building that bond with them that are now like my sisters, right? Like, because we just grew such a bond so quickly because we understood each other so much greater than I would people on my club team when I was, 17, right? So, I just think like that was probably one of my favorite things was just learning from these girls and learning that they're just like me and they kind of look like me too, which is also kind of scary. I still get twins. Jesse and I still get twins all the time. Like when we get there, she was just with me this last summer and they're like, "Are you guys sisters?" And we just always look at each other like, "Yeah, sure." Like, we're sisters. Like, that will always be great. So, just that aspect of it, of the relationship building is far more meaningful than anything else. The playing was great too. It was fun, but, that's
What about
there.
the Asian Cup in 2018 when you were in Jordan?
Oh, the Asian Cup. I think that was, like, just feeling like we actually were getting somewhere in 2018 when we were able to get, you know, warm-up gear, and knowing how great that felt, and then looking back 5 years before that, we hardly had anything, and just seeing kind of the progression of things. I think that to me was more meaningful. Obviously, getting to Jordan was an amazing achievement, and I don't, think of that any less at all. Like, I know how meaningful it is and how much work, to qualify for that and everything that we did to try to qualify in 2018. But I look back and see that as like, look how far we've gone, how this journey has evolved and be able to be in these hotels and have Wi-Fi. You know exactly what I mean.
I
You
know
know,
you were connecting to my phone after training.
I know we were like sitting next to you like, Dennis, you got a hotspot, right? But like those kind of things that people didn't know about
Yeah.
and seeing everything come because we went through that and seeing how easy, well, not easy, but like how fortunate we were in 2018 of, the foods that we were able to eat and the nutrition was so much better and how much the federation was investing in us because we did a lot of the hard work to get there. So I think that part of it I think was really great and obviously we just had a great time. We were able to train in other countries before that as well, to get some games in. And I felt like we were a little bit more prepared because of getting those exhibition matches, because we needed more time to play with each other, in all honesty. So having that opportunity for us to continue playing before the event was key as well.
Gotcha. All right. And Alexa, my last question. Being that this is Football Brew, and again, I'm a coffee junkie. How do you like your coffee?
Oof. I I like mine, as a latte with
Mm.
almond milk and
Oh,
vanilla, which is here.
here's
That's how I like my coffee with almond milk.
so you're an almond milk girl.
Yes, I do. I like it. I don't drink regular milk, so
Mhm.
I just like the creaminess as well. Because black, I can if I have just espresso, I'm good,
Mm.
but black coffee, no way.
I should make you black coffee. Maybe you're just not in drinking the
I
right
mean,
plant.
maybe,
Maybe.
maybe. But coming from Seattle, which is a hot
Oh,
coffee,
right. Right. Okay.
You know,
I take it
straight
back.
straight espresso is great,
Mhm.
amazing, but I don't know, drip coffee,
Yee.
I need
Gotcha. All right, that's others for me, Alexa. But if you have any message at all to the Filipino football community who may be just seeing you for the first time, do you have anything to say to them? Any message?
um, let's see. If I had to put it into one message, my one message would just be continue supporting the women's game because the women's game is growing immensely. And the more that you support it and the more that you voice that you support it, I think that will help build a proper structure that the Philippines deserves. So continue supporting them, watch them, follow them. The more support that they get, the better that it's gonna be in the long run. So, constantly support women.
Yay! Thank you so much. Good talk, Alexa. I learned a lot. We'll see.
I mean, I'll do my best to help if
It needs up.
oh, like, "Mom, can we go outside?"
I
Yeah, of course, honestly,
appreciate.
anytime and anytime you, like, have questions or things like that, like, I'll be more than happy to answer, like, the best that I can. Because obviously, like, I want it to be good over there. So, I mean, I would definitely be a scout. I could do
Thank you,
that.
Alexa. Appreciate it.
Course,
Yeah.
of course. Let me know if you need anything else. And you should probably get to bed at midnight, past
Mm.
midnight. It's 1.
Yeah,
Like,
it's one.
luckily it's Saturday.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Have a good day, Alexa. Thank you.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Great to see you.
Yeah. You look good.
Bye.
You look really good.
Oh, you too. You're doing great. Like,
Thanks.
honestly, you look great. And I look great. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.